Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
Tom, take one. Action.
So my name is Tom Spina. I operate Tom Spina Designs and Regal Robot. Tom Spina Designs is a sort of Swiss Army knife effect shop. We do everything from large foam sculpture, bronze work, wax figures, custom alien costumes, to big foam trade show pieces, and very specialized restoration of original movie props, including stop motion props and things from Beetlejuice. Regal Robot's a company that I started just a few years back, and that grew out of some really cool Star Wars themed decor that we were doing for people's homes. And we now have the license with Disney and Lucasfilm to make Star Wars themed decor, themed furniture, even life-size busts and characters, like the sort of stuff you see around me. So I've been really lucky. We've at Tom Spina Designs, we've been restoring original movie props for decades now, and it's just amazing to me how so many of our favorite films we have now gotten to restore pieces that have been in these iconic movies. And Prop Store called us. They had a few photos, showed us, this was Delia's dangerous art, as they were calling it back then. And they sent us a few photos, and we looked at it and we said, like, okay, we can fix this, don't worry. And that's how everything like that starts. It usually starts with photos. Somebody finds something amazing from some cool movie and says, like, hey, can you fix this? So the process when you're restoring a piece like that is, I think cautious is probably the best word for it. We take a very sympathetic approach to these pieces. We want to make sure that we restore them in a way that maintains as much original material as possible and keeps these things looking like, maybe not like they were just used in the movie yesterday, but really good for their age, and keep them to where that we are maintaining as much of what saw film, as much of that paint and material that was reflected into that camera lens and then played up on that screen that captured our imagination. We want to keep these things as original as possible. So for me, it was kind of a multi-tier level of coolness to work on these. Like, one, it's Beetlejuice, which is just amazing in its own right. Two, it's stop motion, which is something that even when I was a kid, I just always loved stop motion movies. I used to watch King Kong and Mighty Joe Young. They would play them back to back on Channel 9 when I was a little kid on Thanksgiving every year, and I thought it was one long monkey movie. And it wasn't until it was years later I realized, no, King Kong really died on the Empire State Building. I thought as a kid he came back, he was just smaller. So now we have something from Beetlejuice, and it's stop motion, and it's Doug Beswick out of his studio, which Doug is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. He's someone I was very lucky to get to know, and he sculpted on my favorite scene in the world, and that's the Star Wars Cantina. So it really was just this amazing opportunity. And then, the pieces come in, and there's this cool texture to them. They're not smooth. They have lots of little bits and raised elements and things like that, and they've got this amazing patina to them. And that was the thing that stood out to me when I saw them. And it actually, something like that is very helpful when you're restoring a piece like that. If it had a perfectly smooth surface, that's a lot harder to restore. But when you're talking about something that's all these nooks and crannies and all this character, it gave us a lot to work with when we were restoring it. And we just carefully built up the missing areas, carefully painted only those areas that we worked on, so that whatever we were painting matched all that aged foam, latex, and skin that was on the piece originally. It was, I want to say, a few weeks of work. Mike Thomas, who was with me at the time, along with Patrick Louie and myself, did work on these. It was the sort of thing where you know, they came to us, I think they were in better condition than people gave them credit for, but when they left, they just really, just instantly were recognizable as these iconic pieces from the film. So something you've got to be careful of when you're restoring these props is the armature inside. The challenge with an old foam latex piece is it's no longer flexible. So the piece doesn't have to still be able to move, but you want to make sure that you're getting the armature in a good position before you're adding your new material, and you want to make sure that you're coming up with something that isn't going to adversely affect the armature over time. You don't want to put materials on there that are going to rust it or turn it, otherwise negatively impact that armature underneath. But yeah, usually when we're dealing with a stop motion piece, the first thing you're trying to do is find that pose for the item. You want to get it into a fun position. You want to get it into something that looks as close as it could to how it looked in the film, and then go in and do your restoration work. And for us, we did the standing, which is, I think, kind of, to me, a little more recognizable. I do like when it starts walking and it's got the little, the piece up, but I think standing is the way you first see it. I think it's how most people remember it. Yeah. Did you see the life-sized one of that we had to build?
Yes.
That was a lot of fun. We get to do fun things here. Yeah, the sandworm and the life-sized claw sculpture. It was someone who wanted, oh, that was fun. We had someone who wanted to do a Beetlejuice themed wedding, and they said to us, hey, can you build us a giant sandworm? Actually, they originally just said, what could you do for a Beetlejuice themed wedding? And it was Richard Riley and myself started talking and was like, okay, we do a sandworm that people could take a picture with, and we do the claw sculpture, and you have it big enough where they can stand inside of it like it's about to grab them.
This was the styrofoam?
Styrofoam, yeah, it's EPS foam, expanded polystyrene. We hand carve everything with rasps and things like that, and then it gets coated. And we try to capture that same texture, that same detail that's on the little model, but bigger scale. And then, of course, you got to have the patina, that green color all over it. It's really fun. Another really cool piece that we got to restore, it was one of the stop motion sandworms from Beetlejuice. I want to say about this big, and it's only, from here up. And just talk about like a classic Tim Burton animated piece. Big black and white stripes on it, crazy spirals on the teeth, the crazy tongue coming out, the head within a head. I mean, it was everything you would come to expect from a Tim Burton stop motion piece. It came to us in fair condition. It was, there was some separation between some of the white and black striped sections, which were actually cast as separate pieces. The fin on his back, the little shark fin, was a little curled over to one side and needed to be fixed up, and a bunch of his teeth had become dislodged. We thought they were missing, and when we went and did our investigation, we actually found some of the teeth inside, in between the two heads, And this was another one where we said, like, how do we come up with a pose for this first, because this is an armatured piece. So we came up with a good position for it. We wanted the second head to be coming out. And then it was a question of how do we display it? And the idea there was, let's try and do something that speaks to the scene. Let's try and do something that is instantly recognizable and that just pops in your mind as what this thing is. So we came up with this little base made out of polystyrene that was all carved up to look like a wave of sand coming out of the ground, as if this just burst through the stand. And the challenge was to make this in a way, we actually made it in two pieces. So the sand pieces go on in two halves, just so that the piece itself stays original. It's actually still on the original wood base that, I guess Doug's team after the movie just left it on this wood base. And to us, that's part of the production, that's part of the process. and we wanted to maintain that for the client. So that base is underneath our sand, sort of decorative piece on top. So that piece was, it was foam latex and had the metal armature within. The foam was actually in pretty good condition considering its age. So foam is such a mixed bag. Sometimes you get stuff where it is 10 years old, but you'd think it was 50. And then sometimes you get things from 30 or 40 years ago that are almost as, feels like they were cast yesterday. And this was a piece that was in pretty good shape, except for some specific sort of damage that was probably as much from handling and just from getting moved around from place to place over the years as it was from the material deteriorating.